Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, here we are going to be doing our round 11 preview for the 2023 AFL season. And before we start the round previews, we always go back and check the previous round of footy. Port Adelaide defeated Melbourne by 4, Sydney defeated the Kangaroos by 3 points, the Doggies defeated Adelaide by 45, Dockers defeated the Cats by 29, Brisbane defeated Gold Coast by 43, Essendon defeated the Tigers by 1, Hawthorn smashed West Coast by 116 points, Collingwood got over Carlton by 28, and the Saints defeated the Giants by 12. Round 11, we'll just have a little look at what the ladder looks like before we go into round 11. Here it is. I'm not going to go through it too much. Well, actually, I will. Collingwood, Brisbane, Port, Melbourne, Saints, Dogs, Cats, Crows. That's the top 8. Then outside, Essendon, Freo, Carlton, Swans, Suns, Tigers, Giants, Hawks, Kangaroos and Eagles. That's how ladder goes. Round 11 preview will start it now. Friday night, personally, the best and the toughest game to tip of the round. Now, there was only one thing, which is what I base my tipping off here, because there's nothing else which you can do. It's 12th versus 11th, Sydney are in 12th, Carlton are in 11th, it's the SCG, it's Friday night footy. And even though it's not two relatively great sides going at it, it's going to be a great contest. It's two sides that desperately need to win. Last week, Sydney only just scraped home against North at Marvel. They're not a great side at Marvel, Sydney, and I think that we do know that. I think when they play tougher sides there later on in the year, especially like Essendon, which may be the only other game they play at Marvel, I believe, but when they do play Essendon there, I think that's a big danger game for them. But we're not sure how they're going to be faring later on in the year, this game at the moment. But last week, not great. The Swans only just scraped home due to that interchange Richmond. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have won. Carlton last week versus Collingwood, yes, they were inaccurate, but again, though, not great at all. Now, the only thing which helped me tip this game was who's won. And Carlton, I think they're on a 3-game losing streak. The Swans before they were on a pretty big losing streak as well. The Swans did win last week. I think that's a bit of confidence. I think that's the only thing which they needed. That's the only thing which separated these two sides. So Swans by 2 for me, I think it'll be a great game. But yeah, the only thing is that they've got a little bit of confidence after last week. I think they're finally going to get a win here. And a decent one against a decent side back at their home venue, because they have lost their past few games there. Saints versus Hawks first game Saturday, Marvel Stadium. Both sides coming off impressive wins. St Kilda had to hold off a good Giants side. The Orange Tsunami, which did definitely come late in the game. The Giants were pressing. They had to defend. They did a good job, the Saints, and won the game by 12. The Hawks last week absolutely demolished West Coast in Tasmania. So I think the Hawks are going to give it up to the Saints. I think they're going to give them a bit of a run for their money. I don't think they're necessarily going to win, but I think they'll at least take it up to them. It's 5th versus 16th at Marvel. Saints are in 5th. Hawks are in 16th. I've said the Saints by 38. I think they'll be a little bit too strong. But I think Hawthorn will compete in this game for 2.5 quarters and then just fall off late. But I think they're happy to hang around. But yeah, I think the Saints will get it comfortably done in the end by 38. And they might lead that margin for most of the game, or they might only just scrape away that late. But yeah, I think they win by 38. Melbourne versus Fremantle, or Nam versus Wallyallup, I believe. I think I got a little bit closer that time. But yeah, it's Nam versus Wallyallup, Fremantle. Melbourne versus Freo at the MCG as the other Saturday afternoon games. 4th versus 10th, so quite an intriguing contest. Melbourne are in 4th. The Dockers are in 10th. Now, this is a big game because the Dockers have hit some form. They're back. They're back in town. They're back in contention for finals. Melbourne, last week, they did get exposed, and Clayton Oliver's going to be out for a long period of time. I do genuinely think Fremantle are a chance in this game. Do not write them off. Do not tip the Demons by 40, because that's not going to happen. Now, if the Demons do come out and win by 40, great performance from them. But I think the Dockers, they're going to have plenty of confidence. They've just beaten the Cats. And they're in some great form. I think they're going to take it right up to them. I think the Demons will win by 19. I think they'll just be a little bit too strong in the end. I think they'll just show their class at the end of the game. But no, I reckon the Dockers are going to take it right up to the Demons. Saturday twilight footies at GMHBA Stadium between the Geelong Cats and the GWS Giants. 7th versus 15th ladder. Cats are in 7th, Giants are in 15th. The Giants, despite being in 15th, they've been quite an extremely competitive side this year and haven't lost games by a massive margin last week versus the Saints at Giants Stadium. Highly competitive all the way to the end. Just couldn't quite scrape home in the end. But they were showing some intent, and the Saints defence just held up there. If it was a weaker defence, they would have broken through and won, but because the Saints defence is quite strong, that's what held them on. Geelong, we know they've got plenty of injuries over the park. and that's why they've been vulnerable in the past couple of weeks with losses to Richmond and Fremantle. I think this week is definitely the week they need to bounce back. They lose here, and their season is not in all sorts of trouble, but man, it'd be a big upset if the Giants were to get the job done. I don't think they will. I think they're going to get absolutely smashed in this game. Toby Green is definitely one of their main reliers, and the Cats' defence is still relatively sound. I think the Cats will win this game by 42 points, and just really show the competition how good they are, and especially at GMHBA Stadium, home ground advantage. Big win coming up, Cats. Saturday night footy, Channel 7 Saturday night game is the Gold Coast Suns versus Western Bulldogs at TIO Stadium. The Suns have a 2-week stint at TIO Stadium. They'll be playing the Dogs there in round 11 and the Crows there in round 12. Both on Saturday night prime time games, one Channel 7, one not. But this week is versus the Western Bulldogs, TIO 13th versus 6th. Gold Coast 13th, Western Bulldogs 6th. I think this would be a decent game, especially because the Dogs haven't played up there in a long time, and there's probably a couple of sides that actually haven't played up there at all, but I think the Dogs are one of the I think they played back in maybe 2014, 15, not quite sure. I'm pretty sure they have played up there before. We know the Suns play up there 2 games every year, over rounds 11 and 12. I think this will be a good game. I think the Suns will take it up to them, and I think they need to as well. Even though they're just 1 game outside the top 8, but I still feel like they really need to take this game up to the Western Bulldogs, and ideally for them win. But I think the Dogs are on a surge here. I think they are going to finish off this year very well, and top 4 is not out of the equation for them yet. I think they can easily get and make the top 4, the Western Bulldogs, and I think they'll win this game by 11, continue on what a great year they're having, and continue their surge up towards the top of the ladder. Second Saturday night game at Optus Stadium is between the West Coast Eagles and Essendon 18th versus 9th. West Coast 18th, Essendon 9th. Essendon coming off of a really inspiring win at Dreamtime at the G, a 1-point win over Richmond where they had to really grind that one out late and kick the last 4 or 5 goals of the game. I think they kicked 5 of the last 6 or 4 of the last 5 to get themselves home from a place where they looked gone. West Coast, speaking about gone, they were gone. Well and truly, late in the first term against the Hawks, they were absolutely gone. I think West Coast are having a horror year, and I think their horror year is going to continue, and I think Essendon are going to win by 69 points, and it's going to absolutely smash West Coast and really show that they are a finals contender. Richmond versus Port Adelaide, first game on the Sunday at the MCG. Damien Hardwick has quit Richmond and is not going to be coaching anymore. Farewell game was potentially going to be this one, but that is not the case. He's done, and it'll be the first game where Richmond interim or assistant coach will stand up and take the coaching duties versus Port Adelaide. 7 games in a row. Wow, what a year they've been having so far, Port Adelaide. Top 4's well and truly in the mix, and I mean, they should be top 8 makers by now. At the MCG, though, that is their weak point, and I do feel like Richmond are well and truly in this game. We have seen with interim coaches in the past where they do actually have a really good record to start off, so Richmond are well and truly not out of the equation. He's 14th versus 3rd on the ladder, and I do think Richmond are in for a little bit of a mini upset here. I think this will be a great game. I have gone the safe team and said Port Adelaide by 12. I think they'll be a little bit too strong, but I do think this will be a decent game. Collingwood versus North Melbourne is a Sunday Channel 7 game. It's 1st versus 7th at Marvel Stadium. And Collingwood at first, it is a Marvel Stadium home game, one of a couple or a few, I think. I think they played 2 or 3 games at Marvel this year. But North is one of them, and it's a bit of a gift for them. A nice win here should be coming up. North, I think they'll be alright. I don't think they're going to get absolutely smashed by over 100 points or even over 60 points. I think Collingwood will be able to put them away. I don't think they'll absolutely smash them because, again, they're an MCG, not a Marvel side. So I think they'll win by 50 points. I think they'll just be too strong because we know what sort of a year they're having. And it's 1st versus 17th, as I said. It's really not going to be an interesting contest. Final game on the Sunday is probably the best of the Sunday games, despite having a relatively good pick here. Despite having some great games to choose from on the Sunday, main one being Richmond and Port. I think this one will be a good one as well. Crows versus Lions. It's 8th versus 2nd on the ladder. So a top 8 battle, and look, it is at the Adelaide Oval between Adelaide and Brisbane, and the Crows are great at the Adelaide Oval. They are a great side there, and they can contend and beat any team there. We saw how good they were against Collingwood back in round 7. We know they smashed the Saints in round 9, and I reckon they could potentially win against Brisbane. Now, with Brisbane's forward line and stuff like that, I think they're going to be able to generate a too good of a score, which Adelaide won't be able to beat. But talking about scoring, both sides' forward lines are absolutely amazing. And this could be a game where both sides score over 100 points. This could be a high-scoring thriller. Now, I do think it'll be a bit more on the highest scoring side, potentially, not both over 100, but I think the Lions will win by 15. I think this will be a great game for most of it. I think the Lions just run away late. We do know that Adelaide, potentially later on in games, can have a few little patches where they do give up some scores. Last few scores against Collingwood, they gave up in about a 3 or 4 minute burst. We know the Saints kicked a couple of late goals as well against them. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good game. I just think they're going to die off a little bit later on and, yeah, lose the game by 15 points. Alright, so there are my tips for the round. I've said Sydney by 2, I've said the Saints by 38, Melbourne by 19, Geelong by 42, Western Bulldogs by 11, Essendon by 69, Port Adelaide by 12, Collingwood by 50, and Brisbane by 15 as we switch across the ladder now. And here it is. I did go through it earlier on, so if you want to go ahead and see that, make sure you go back to the start. Otherwise, I'll just scroll through it and you guys can look at it at your own pace about what you guys need to see with this ladder. We will now be going ahead to my ladder after the round. So make sure to go ahead and watch tipping as that's got all the exact scores. But anyway, though, Collingwood on the top, Brisbane, Port Adelaide equals second, so second and third, Brisbane, Port. Then Melbourne, Saints, Dogs all on 8 and 3, 4, 5, 6 respectively. Geelong in 7th, Essendon 8th, Adelaide 9th, Freo 10th, Sydney 11th, Carlton 12th, Gold Coast 13th, Richmond 14th, GWS 15th, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, and then West Coast. And to finish off the round preview, we always go through some stats. As we know, Clayton Oliver's going to be out for a long time, so his disposal number will be going down. I think he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Nick Dacos owns that one at the moment. Score involvements, Charlie Curno's in front of as well at the moment. And the Coleman medal, things are definitely getting interesting in terms of the Coleman medal. We'll go into the full table here. So we've got Charlie Curnow in first, Jeremy Cameron in second, Tom Hawkins in third, Joe Danaher in fourth, along with Charlie Cameron in fifth. I think those are the only players at the moment that can win it, but I really do feel like it'll be Curnow and Cameron that will be the tight tussle, as those two do have a bit of an advantage and a bit of a, not an advantage, but a bit more than the rest of the pack. Anyway, though, what a round of footy round 11 looks to be. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Sending you guys another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. Bye everyone. Flame Footy out.